Sometimes a stock just starts popping up everywhere and people can't stop talking about it. That's exactly what's happening with Oklo right now. If you've been paying attention, investment, you've probably seen the headlines, the social media chatter, and the investor forums all buzzing about this company. But why? Let's break it down. First, it's the technology. Oklo isn't just another energy company. They're developing compact nuclear reactors, which is a huge deal. Think about it: clean, small scale, and safer nuclear energy. Traditional nuclear plants are massive, expensive, and come with all kinds of regulatory headaches. But Oklo is doing something different. They're designing reactors that could fit into a much smaller footprint, reduce waste, and generate power more efficiently. For anyone looking at the energy sector and thinking long term, that's a game changer. Investors are seeing the potential for a completely new type of energy infrastructure, investment. And that's exciting. Then there's the timing. Oklo is still early in its journey. This isn't an established giant where most of the upside has already been priced in. We're talking about a company that's still in its growth phase, which means there's a huge opportunity for early investors to get in before the stock becomes mainstream. When you look at the numbers, when you see how far they can go if they execute, it's the kind of story that naturally draws attention. Early stage growth opportunities are rare, especially in sectors as critical as energy. Next, you have to consider the credibility factor. Oklo isn't just a concept or a speculative idea. They have strategic partnerships and are making real progress with regulators. That means the company isn't just talking, they're moving forward with tangible milestone. When you see government support and successful prototypes, it tells you this isn't hypey, it's legitimacy. For investors, that's a major reassurance because risk is always a concern, especially with revolutionary tech. Seeing that progress gives confidence that this company could deliver real results. Finally, investment. There's the buzz. Once people start talking, momentum builds on its own. Investors see the media coverage, the social chatter, the headlines, and they start thinking, investment. I don't want to miss this. That buzz creates a feedback loop. Attention drives interest, interest drives investment, and investment drives more attention. It's one of those rare moments where market sentiment starts to line up with actual technological innovation, which is why everyone seems to be focused on Oklo right now. So when you put it all together, the groundbreaking technology, the early stage growth potential, the credibility from partnerships, and the momentum created by market attention, it's easy to see why Oklo has captured the conversation. It's not just a stock people are speculating on. Investment. It's a company people are imagining as part of the future of energy. When you start looking at Oklo, the first thing that really grabs your attention is the technology they're developing. This isn't your standard energy company trying to tweak something that already exists. This is fundamentally rethinking how we produce power. The compact nuclear reactors they're building are designed to be smaller, investment, safer, and far more efficient than traditional nuclear plants, and that changes the whole conversation about energy. Imagine a nuclear reactor that doesn't take up acres of land, investment doesn't require the same massive infrastructure, and that can be deployed in places where traditional nuclear just wouldn't make sense. That's exactly what Oklo is aiming for, and it's a pretty bold move. The implications are huge. Energy is something every industry relies on, every city needs, and every economy depends on. But right now, the challenges with nuclear energy have always been about scale, cost, and safety. Traditional nuclear power has been around for decades, but it's slow, it's expensive, and there's always the lingering concern about safety and waste management. Oklo is trying to flip that model on its head. Investment. Their reactors are designed to produce clean energy without the massive footprint and without the same level of risk, which makes it a lot more adaptable to modern energy demands. For investors, everything makes a good investment. That's a story that immediately makes sense. You're not just betting on a company, you're betting on a solution to one of the biggest global problems. And the innovation doesn't stop at size. These reactors are meant to operate more efficiently, producing a steady and reliable source of energy with a smaller environmental impact. Investment. That's significant because we're in an era where climate concerns aren't just theoretical. They're front page news, and governments, companies, and consumers are all looking for real solutions. By addressing both the safety and environmental concerns that have historically held nuclear energy back, Oklo positions itself as a forward-thinking player in an industry that desperately needs modernization. It's also worth noting how this kind of technology naturally captures attention. People are drawn to companies that don't just do incremental improvements, but actually challenge conventional wisdom. Investment. When investors see a company that might change the way we think about energy production entirely, it creates a sense of urgency. Like, this could be the next big thing, and you want to understand it before everyone else does. That's why the conversation around Oklo has exploded. It's not just a stock to watch, it's a potential solution to a problem that affects every single person on the planet. And when you start connecting the dots, the need for clean energy, the demand for smaller and safer nuclear options, and the broader push toward sustainable infrastructure, it becomes clear why Oklo's technology is the first reason everyone is talking about this company. The moment you really understand what they're building, it's hard not to get excited about the possibilities. The second thing that makes Oklo so compelling is the timing. This company is still in its early stages, and that's exactly what creates the kind of opportunity investors dream about. When you think about the energy sector, most of the big players are already well established. Their technology is proven investment, their infrastructure is massive, and the upside from growth is already baked into their valuations. But Oklo is different. This is a company that's still building, still innovating, and still finding its place in an industry that is desperately in need of modernization. Being able to get in at this stage is huge because the potential for growth hasn't been realized yet. Early stage companies are always a gamble, of course. There's no guarantee that everything will work out, and that's what makes investing in them exciting, but also risky investment. The difference with Oklo is that the risk is backed by a very clear vision. They're not experimenting with a concept that has no track record. They're developing compact nuclear reactors, a technology with massive practical applications, and they're making tangible progress. Early investors are essentially buying into a story that has both innovation and execution potential. That combination is rare investment, and it's what draws so much attention. When you look at the numbers and the market potential, it becomes even more compelling. Energy is not just a business, it's a necessity. Demand isn't going away. If anything, it's increasing. Every economy in the world is searching for cleaner, safer, and more efficient ways to meet energy demands, and Oklo is positioning itself at the forefront of that movement. Investment. Early stage growth in a sector like this isn't something that happens often. You get moments where the right technology meets the right timing, and if you're in at the start, you stand to benefit in ways that latecomers never will. The early stage aspect also creates a unique psychology around the stock. People naturally want to be part of the next big thing before it becomes obvious to everyone else. It's not just about the technical merits. It's about positioning yourself ahead of the curve. That's why you see so many conversations online about Oklo. Investors are realizing that this could be their chance to get exposure to a potentially transformative company before it's too late. Investment. It's the type of opportunity that makes people sit up, pay attention, and consider how this fits into their own portfolio strategy. Ultimately, investment. The early stage status of Oklo is more than just a phase. It's a statement. It signals growth potential, untapped opportunity, and a chance to be part of something that could redefine an entire industry. When you combine that with the groundbreaking technology, the timing is perfect. Investors aren't just seeing a company investment. They're seeing the possibility of being part of a story that is just beginning to unfold. Another major factor that has people talking about Oklo is the credibility it's building through partnerships and regulatory progress. This isn't just some startup with a cool idea. It's a company taking deliberate steps to prove that what it's doing is real, feasible, and potentially transformative when you invest in early stage technology. Now, one of the biggest questions is always whether the company can actually execute. With Oklo, the signs are encouraging. They've been able to align with strategic partners and make progress on regulatory fronts. Everything makes a good investment, which tells investors that this isn't just talk. There's a plan, there's oversight, and there's tangible progress. Think about it from an investor's perspective. When a company is pioneering a new type of technology, especially in energy, you can't just rely on promises. You need proof that the idea works and that the organization has the resources and expertise to turn that idea into something real. That's where partnerships come in. Oklo is working with players who bring credibility, industry knowledge, and access to networks that are critical for scaling complex technology. These aren't small, inconsequential collaborations. They signal that industry insiders see potential and are willing to invest time and resources to make it happen. Investment. That kind of validation is invaluable because it reduces the perceived risk that often scares away early investors. Regulatory progress is another huge piece of the puzzle. Nuclear technology, even compact reactors, operates in a heavily regulated environment. Navigating that successfully isn't easy, but Oklo is showing that it can. Achieving milestones with regulatory bodies demonstrates that the technology is not only plausible, but also acceptable under strict safety and operational standards. For an investor, that's a massive vote of confidence. It's one thing to have a great idea on paper, and quite another to have regulators essentially say, yes, we see this as safe and viable. That distinction matters when you're evaluating where to put your money. Investment. This combination of strategic partnerships and regulatory validation also helps build momentum beyond the numbers. It creates a narrative that people can believe in, and that narrative drives interest. Investors see a company that isn't just sitting in a lab. They're actively engaging with the ecosystem, proving that their technology can exist in the real world. Investment and getting endorsements that make the risk feel more calculated. It's a rare alignment in a sector that's historically difficult to break into, and it's exactly why conversations about Oklo have shifted from curiosity to serious consideration. Ultimately, credibility isn't just about checking boxes. It's about demonstrating that a company has what it takes to execute its vision. Oklo is doing exactly that. With strategic partners backing the technology and regulatory milestones being achieved, the company is sending a clear message: this is a legitimate opportunity, and the path forward is real. It's that combination of innovation, execution, and validation that has everyone paying attention right now. The final reason everyone is suddenly talking about Oklo comes down to momentum, buzz, and market sentiment. When a company like this starts gaining attention, it almost creates its own gravitational pull. People notice the coverage in the media, the chatter on social platforms, the articles analyzing the technology and the stock, and suddenly it feels like everyone is asking the same question: what's going on with Oklo? That momentum feeds itself because as more people talk about it, more investors feel compelled to pay attention, and that cycle only accelerates interest. It's important to understand why momentum like this matters. In investing, timing and perception can be just as critical as fundamentals, especially in early stage companies. Even if a company has incredible technology and strong partnerships, investment. It's the market's perception that often drives the immediate stock movement. And right now, Oklo is benefiting from a perfect alignment: innovative technology, early stage growth potential, credible execution, and now widespread awareness. Investors are naturally drawn to opportunities that feel like they're gaining traction, and the more people engage in the conversation, investment, the more it validates the company story in the eyes of potential investors. Part of this buzz comes from the idea that Oklo represents the next step in energy evolution. Investment. People are excited about being part of something transformative, and they want to position themselves before it becomes mainstream. That excitement is contagious, and it spreads fast. When investors see peers, analysts, or influencers discussing the company, it reinforces the notion that this is an opportunity worth exploring. It's not just the facts about the company. Good investment. It's the narrative that it's part of a larger shift in energy production and sustainability that captures attention. That narrative turns Oklo into more than a stock. It becomes a story people want to be part of. Another factor driving momentum is the fear of missing out, and it's very real in cases like this. When early adopters and investors start noticing growth potential, others jump in to avoid being left behind. That creates a feedback loop. Interest drives investment. Investment drives media attention. Media attention drives more interest. And suddenly, a company that was previously under the radar becomes the center of conversation. It's a psychological pattern that's been seen countless times in investing. But in Oklo's case, it's fueled by genuinely innovative technology and real-world progress, which gives it an added layer of credibility compared to hype-driven stories. Ultimately, investment. Momentum is more than just noise. It's a signal that people are recognizing opportunity. With Oklo, the technology, the growth potential, and the credibility all feed into this surge of attention. Investment. And that attention is what amplifies the conversation. Investors are noticing, analysts are covering it, and suddenly it feels like everyone is asking the same question. investment. Could this be the next major player in the energy space? The answer isn't just in the headlines, it's in understanding why the buzz exists in the first place.